The Blazers beat reporter Aaron J. Fentress was on the Drive Guys, and he himself wasn't sure who was going to give up 2 firsts for Jerami Grant as we tie a bow on the Niners talk for a little bit. From the 916, I'm a diehard Niners fan, but I have serious fatigue on the 49ers after the last few seasons. I don't know how to get up for this next season, to be perfectly honest, and in some ways, it'll be nice because I just don't have a lot of expectations going into the season, whereas last year it was Super Bowl or bust. Yeah, I think that coming off the Brock situation, it would have been ours if Brock didn't get hurt. There was a lot of expectations. Nobody called it the revenge season, but people thought, I mean, they were cooking. And then you have the fluke to Ayuk and everything looked to be moving in the direction of you're finally going to get it done, and then they didn't. I think this one burned a lot for Niners fans, and maybe you're just numb to it. I know Nate has talked about being numb to it a little bit, and as we go into this next season, maybe this will be the surprise when they actually do get it done. But, of course, we will have all of that Niners information for you as we continue on throughout the process. All right, getting into this Trailblazers conversation, Chris, and Aaron J. Fentress was not really sure who was going to give up 2 firsts, as I talked a little bit yesterday about why not be the Kings and just get it done. This is what he had to say on the Drive, guys.
Are the Blazers going to roll over on Jerami Grant? I mean, there's a reports that okay, it's going to take 2 first-round picks to get him. Do we know how many teams might be interested? Do we believe Sacramento could be one of them, Aaron?
I don't know who's giving up 2 firsts for Jerami. It's one of those things where, they want 2 first-round picks. Well, they probably want 3 or 4 or 5 or 6,
Sure.
But wanting what you get are 2 different things. They just packaged 2 firsts with Brogdon, whom they wanted to get 1 or 2 firsts for, to get Denny Adva. So are you really going to come back and get 2 for Jerami, whom you got for 1 pick and a trade exception 2 years ago? So now he's 2 years older. He has 4 years remaining on this huge deal that's going to pay him $30+ a year. I don't know who's ponying up 2 picks for that. And even any contender that might think he's a key piece for them, you must already have a pretty high payroll. So do you want to take on that type of salary for a guy who's somewhat one-dimensional at forward? He doesn't really rebound. The defense is okay. He's a great guy, though. Like, if he does go down there, you guys will absolutely love him. Great person. Love covering him. I just don't see how 2 firsts is a thing. But we'll see.
Aaron,
So I have here, Chris, I just fired this up right now, okay, on good old Fanspo, and this would be my take it or leave it for the Blazers, all right? And I'm not doing 2 firsts. The question is, would you add a first to this, or would you even do this? So I have here the Kings would get Jerami Grant, and the Blazers would get Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles. And my question to you would be, I think you would do that deal if the Blazers said, we need Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and a first for Jerami Grant. Would you do that deal?
I would want protections on the first-round pick. It definitely wouldn't be an unprotected first. I just feel like, I've personally also never really been super high on Jerami Grant. It's actually kind of music to my ears to hear a Blazers reporter say those things about Jerami Grant, because I've always kind of felt it. But you know how it is, especially when teams are active in trade talks. It seems like fan bases tend to kind of just prop those guys up a little bit more. It's always, oh my gosh, this guy is the perfect solution.
Besides Kyle Kuzma.
Besides Kyle Kuzma, of course, besides Kyle Kuzma. For some reason, Kyle's the only one who's not perfect. But, Lauri Markkanen, he fixed all your problems. Yes. Jerami Grant, he fixes all of your problems. And I just never really saw it from Jerami Grant. So it is nice to hear that from a Blazer reporter. But yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing for that is just, again, like Jerami Grant, like he said, makes a lot of money. Like, you're paying, I didn't even realize that he signed initially a 5-year deal. So yeah, he's right. There's 4 more years left on that deal. Jerami Grant, $29 million, then $32 the following season, $34 the next, and then a player option for $36 million in 27-28. He better be the right answer. And that's the problem for me, is I just don't think he's necessarily a good enough player to eat up that much of your cap. With all that said, Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter, and we'll say a top 10 protected first-round pick for Jerami Grant, I'm okay with it, but I personally would want them to explore other options. I would rather do Cam Johnson. I would rather do Kyle Kuzma. I probably would rather see what the Brandon Ingram market is looking like at this point, because if you're going to take up that much money and if you're going to be cap locked anyway, I kind of might as well go for the best possible option. And I just don't feel like Jerami Grant is that. I think he's a really solid player. I think it's interesting to hear that he doesn't think that his defense is really the highlight of his game, because that's the most intriguing part to me. I don't know, man. Like I think he's a really solid player, but I would just look other ways, especially if it's gonna. I mean, even if it's not going to be 2 first-round picks, I just feel like there's better options out there. But value-wise, I think I'm okay with Herter, Lyles, and a protected first. But I'm not going to be super excited about it on these airwaves. I'll tell you that.
No,
but it does. We talked about it a lot yesterday. It does make the overall 5 a whole lot better.
Yes, it makes the 5 better, and I do think it puts them into the conversation of, and this is what we talked about a little bit yesterday. You could be a 3 seed.
Yeah,
right now, and an unsurprising 3 seed.
Yes.
I think with the current roster, you would be a very surprising 3 seed. I think you add Jerami Grant, you would be an unsurprising 3 seed.
Yeah,
or better, or better, because we're just assuming that the T-Wolves are going to play the same exact way. I mean, they just go Bear. They did they beat Japan?
They squeaked it out 94-90
because Rui Hachimura, my guy, okay, got ejected from the game.
Pretty much the only reason why.
So I don't know, Chris. I'm starting to get a little bit itchy. Okay, and I know Nate's probably going to cut that too, but I'm starting to get a little bit itchy with the idea that nobody is making a move, and you can be defensive. And I don't know if defensive is the right term, but you can be okay. I feel like we're at a middle school dance, okay? And everybody's on one side and everybody's on the other. And it's just who's going to be the person, right, that's just going to, hey, this is my song. Yeah. Let's get out there. And nobody wants to be the person.
Wants to go out in the middle.
And I feel like Monty McNair might be the person, because that person ends up being the most popular.
Yeah, for sure.
And everybody likes that person, because if
but everyone's afraid to.
But everyone's afraid to
be that person.
But then if you're not that person and somebody else goes and gets the little cutie that you wanted to talk to, you might look around, everybody else bum rushes. Now there's no cuties to talk to.
Yeah,
now you're not dancing.
That's really how it can be, for sure.
Now you gigging with your friend in a corner, okay, to Mac Dre, and nobody is
acting
looking
like
at
that's
you.
What you wanted the whole time.
It was a movie last night. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't a movie. Nobody wanted that. All right, you left with no prospects.
Great time,
No, yeah. Oh man,
boys' night, bro down.
We got hot dogs after. No, you didn't want that. Come on now, that's not why you went out.
No, I think that's a great analogy. Seriously, I think it's perfect, because I think Monty McNair might be the one to say, okay, like we're going to be the one making these splashes. Right. Like I thought Golden State wanted to do it. I thought there was going to be a big market for the Kyle Kuzmas. I thought the Lakers were going to be wanting all these guys, Jerami Grant, Brandon Ingram, all these guys. And if the Kings are going to come out of this offseason with, I mean, obviously Paul George is the massive move of the offseason, but if the Kings make essentially the 2 biggest non-Paul George biggest power plays and getting DeMar and go out there and get whoever it is. I mean, Mikal Bridges, of course, I'm forgetting about too, and DeJounte Murray. Those are forgotten in time. But I think if the Kings make that kind of move, that's the most aggressive offseason I think anybody has. Going out and go getting a DeMar DeRozan when, frankly, I don't think a lot of people even really knew that he was for the taking, or he kind of at the last minute, once they made the Caruso trade, was like, okay, I might not want to stay here in Chicago. And Monty pounced really quickly. I think it would be great if Monty's the aggressor in this offseason. It's already felt like he's been. I mean, he's touched every single rumor that's been out there. The Kings have been linked to it all. It wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't surprise me if the Kings are the ones who make the next move too. They made the last move, big move of the offseason so far. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they're the ones who are the most aggressive and say, look, we're not trying to get left behind here. We didn't make the playoffs. We have a fan base that's incredibly hungry for playoff basketball. We're going to make sure we lock down that spot, because we just learned last season, don't leave it up to chance. Don't put yourself in the play-in and say, oh, it's fine. The play-in's kind of built to give you an extra life raft. that's not the life they want to live. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they prioritize just not being in the play-in period and saying, we'll figure it out. Again, look at Dallas. Nobody thought at the halfway point in last season that they were going to make the finals. Maybe Monty says, it's kind of nice to not be the front runner a bit. It's nice to, kind of surprise some people. We like exactly where we're at right now with people not talking about us and trying to downplay the DeMar signing. So, yeah, I definitely could see the Kings being the aggressor and maybe saying, that's a high price for Jerami Grant, but we might be willing to pay it if it gets it done and puts us in the right position.
Yeah, and the main thing is here, if you look at the Timberwolves and what they did, it was one of those memes. Nobody at all. Not a single soul. 5 first-rounders for Rudy Gobert. Now, I'm not saying that the Kings should go out and do that, but it wasn't as if, oh, okay, well, everybody's making moves. Let's go do it. No, they did something that they believed in, okay? And they had the courage of their conviction. And no, they haven't got to the finals yet, but now we're looking at them as a top 2 seed in the West because you hit on Anthony Edwards. You still have Karl Anthony Towns in its 75 voices. And now you add on one Rudy Gobert. And the first season, they got clowned. That's the other part of this, Chris. You have to account for that season where you're figuring things out.
Yeah.
So let's say the Kings, they want to stay flexible. They go into this one season with DeMar DeRozan, and let's say they get bounced in the first round, something like that, even the second round. Now you have to, if you're probably going to need to add something, then what are you waiting for? Because then, okay, now we have to go into next season, and we have to make sure that this all works together. And if it doesn't work, now we've lost another year. So I think if you feel like you are going to want to strike again, then I don't really understand what exactly. And I'm not saying that I know the ins and outs the same way the rest of the front office does. I'm not saying that. But from the outside looking in, it's if you feel, unless you think this team is it, then I'm not really sure what exactly it is you're waiting for. Because we've seen there's no clearance sale coming. There's no going out of business.
No, yeah.
Okay, now we'll just take a second rounder for Jerami Grant. That's not going to happen, or we just need a second rounder for Kyle Kuzma. These teams are willing. These teams are, especially when it's your own conference, these teams are almost willing to keep themselves in a bad spot than to come off of an asset that they don't think they're getting the value for.
Yeah,
they'd rather screw themselves over than help out a team. Speaking of, are you willing to help the Golden State Warriors if it means the Sacramento Kings get better? A blockbuster trade scenario from Bleacher Report that Chris and I get into, and let's just say we have 2 very different thoughts on it. Stiles and Watkins, Sactown Sports.
You never know what you might